All right, let's get right into it. We've got the United States locked in this incredibly tense standoff with Iran. But here's the thing that's so strange. For a global superpower, its traditional allies are, well, nowhere to be found. The U.S. is standing pretty much all by itself. So you gotta ask, right? How on earth did we get here? How did the most powerful country in the world end up facing a major crisis without its friends in its corner? Well, the answer is a pretty messy story of burned bridges and, totally different agendas.
And our story really kicks off with this attempt to build a coalition, an attempt that was, to put it mildly, a complete failure. So the Trump administration sends out the call. They ask their partners to help protect the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the most critical oil choke points on the entire planet. But instead of everyone jumping on board, crickets. The world's major powers basically left the U.S. on read. The silence was just deafening.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. After that global cold shoulder, the administration did a hard pivot. President Trump came out and declared that, actually, not only was the help not needed, but it was never even wanted. It's such a huge contrast, right? And according to our source, it really shows a White House that was just making things up as it went along.
But this kind of isolation doesn't just happen overnight. It was the direct result of a whole series of actions that pushed away key partners, one after the other.
Just take a look at this chart. It lays out the whole problem perfectly. The European Union, they were reeling from trade wars and felt like the U.S. had bailed on security issues like Ukraine. The U.K., one of America's oldest allies, felt totally humiliated. Canada was getting hit with tariffs and a forced rewrite of NAFTA. Even the Gulf states, who have so much to lose here, were more scared of Iran than they were confident in U.S. protection. And then you've got South Korea and Japan, both getting haired with demands for more defense money while also dealing with tariffs. It's a mess.
So when you connect all those dots, a really clear pattern emerges. First, there was this massive breakdown of trust. Allies just didn't see the U.S. as a reliable partner anymore. They were frankly ticked off about being targeted in these trade wars. And maybe most importantly, many were terrified of being dragged into a war that, as the source points out, had no UN backing, wasn't a response to a direct attack, and could therefore be considered illegal under international law.
But hold on, because the U.S. being isolated, that's only half the story. There's another major player here, one that's operating with its own, very different and much more aggressive agenda: Israel.
Okay, quick vocabulary lesson, because this word is absolutely crucial for what's coming next. Interlocutor. Basically, it's just someone who can act as a bridge for a conversation, a potential channel for peace talks. Got it?
Good.
Now, this is a pretty stunning argument from the source material. It claims Israel's strategy isn't to de-escalate. In fact, it's the opposite. The source argues Israel is actively trying to destroy any chance for peace by systematically assassinating the exact Iranian officials who could serve as those all-important interlocutors.
And the source provides some specific examples to back this up. Sure, hardliners like the Minister of Intelligence and the commander of the Basaj forces were taken out, but the real smoking gun, according to this argument, is the assassination of Ali Larijani. He was seen as a relative moderate, someone the West might actually be able to talk to. By taking him off the chessboard, the source claims Israel was deliberately torching any last bridges for diplomacy.
So why would they do this? What's the end game? While the source suggests the goal is to trap the United States, if there's no one left to talk to, the conflict can only get worse, which forces the U.S. to stay involved and keep weakening Iran's military and nuclear ambitions, something Israel sees as an existential threat.
So you put it all together, U.S. isolation on one hand and this Israeli escalation on the other, and it left the Trump administration completely backed into a corner. They were left with absolutely no good options.
And man, just look at this dilemma. It's a classic rock and a hard place situation. Option 1, pull out. Try to spin some kind of fake victory for the folks back home and just hope they buy it. But you risk looking incredibly weak to the rest of the world. Option 2, go all in. Escalate. Try to topple the Iranian regime, but risk a horrible, drawn-out war with almost zero international support. It's a total gamble, either way.
So the big takeaway here is that the U.S. was essentially flying blind, no allies to rely on, and a key partner actively pouring gasoline on the fire. The administration was just improvising, stuck in a really dangerous trap that, it had largely built for itself.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is some complex foreign policy stuff, but why does it really matter to me? Well, the truth is, the consequences of this standoff ripple across the entire planet and affect pretty much everyone.
$109 At the peak of all this, that was the price for a single barrel of oil. And that number, that one number, kicked off a truly devastating chain reaction around the world.
Let's just walk through how this works, because it's like a series of dominoes. First, the conflict chokes the oil supply. That immediately causes a price shock. You feel it at the gas pump, you feel it on your heating bill. That, in turn, drives up inflation, because the cost to make and ship literally everything goes up. So then, central banks have to jack up interest rates to fight that inflation, making it more expensive for anyone to borrow money. And that whole combination creates a very, very real risk of a global recession.
So let's be super clear here. A standoff in the Middle East doesn't just stay in the Middle East. It becomes an economic crisis that has a direct impact on how much money is in your pocket thousands of miles away.
And all of this leaves us with one last, pretty sobering question. When a country pushes all of its allies away, when the people who could actually make peace are systematically removed, and when diplomacy itself is thrown out the window, what options are even left?